Welcome to Hope in the Face of Cancer, where we share real stories of courageous people and their cancer journey. Today we meet Michael Wiesenthal, a CanCare volunteer and former CanCare client who conquered acute myeloid leukemia, or AML. Michael is not just a survivor, he is a beacon of hope in the CanCare community, supporting others as they navigate their toughest times. His story reminds us that from profound struggle emerges profound strength. Before we speak with Michael, let's take a moment to reflect on what being a client at CanCare really means. It's about individuals, maybe just like you, who are bravely navigating the cancer journey as a patient or a loved one. People who are not only facing their treatments, but also the roller coaster of emotions that accompany them. It's about finding a light of hope when the path gets too dark. CanCare client Maria explained it as, finding my CanCare volunteer was like finding an anchor in the midst of my storm. Our volunteers are the heart of CanCare. They are survivors and caregivers who transform their profound personal experiences into a source of strength for others. John, a CanCare caregiver volunteer, says supporting someone else has given my own struggles meaning and shown me the beauty of resilience. Our volunteers are here to offer not just support, but hope, guidance, and a listening ear when it matters most. Our unique matching system ensures that every client is paired with someone who not only understands their medical journey, but connects with them on an emotional level. Last year alone, CanCare brought together nearly 1,600 pairs, creating relationships that were crucial for their cancer journey. And now let's dive deeper with Michael, whose own journey from client to volunteer captures the essence of what CanCare is all about. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today on our new podcast. We are so grateful for you and look forward to hearing your story today.
Thanks for including me.
Of course, of course. So let's just dive right in. Tell us and tell our audience about when you first heard those words, you have cancer. Tell us a little bit about that experience for you.
Well, my experience was just a little bit different. When I was not feeling good, I went to my internist. Long story how I got there, and he called me back and said, "You need to get to Methodist Hospital Stat." And didn't really know what stat meant, but it sounded like it was something urgent. So I went down to Methodist Hospital. They took a blood sample, and immediately the doctor looked up and said, "You've got cancer."
Mm.
I mean, my heart dropped into my stomach. I mean, I just thought this was never going to happen to me. But what was different about my experience is that I didn't have time to think about it. I didn't leave the
Mm.
hospital for about a month after that day I got there, where a lot of
Wow.
people get the diagnosis, they're sent home, and they have to ruminate in it for a couple weeks before they start to do their treatment. It was on. It was on the next day.
Wow. So a month in the hospital. You didn't expect walking in there that you'd be there for a month. What about telling your family and your friends? I mean, how did you make that call and tell them, hey, I'm here, I've had this test, and I'm going to be here for a while?
Well, of course, that was very difficult, and my children
Hmm.
were young, and I told my wife
Yeah.
first, and she told the children because I was, stuck in the hospital. They were too young to
Hmm.
come up there and see me. And with my friends, I told some of my closer ones, and then it just spread, and the word spread within
Yeah.
the community of people that that I hang out with. It didn't take long, and with my synagogue, they were so supportive. I'm with
Hmm.
Congregation Beth Yeshurun, and I had so many people reach out to me, and I had a bone marrow drive. With leukemia, it was a bone marrow transplant that I needed to survive, and the synagogue helped me with that. So people came to my house with food and well wishes, and people that I had never met before.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So tell me about that time in the hospital, for treatment and kind of what's going through your mind. How are you processing this experience? And, how are you handling the
Well,
emotions of that cancer journey?
I never had that why me feeling.
Mm.
I slept a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I spent way too much time in the bed, and if anybody
Yeah.
needs some good advice, don't stay in that bed. The bed is not your friend. It's a place that you
Yeah.
could, your mind just plays tricks on you, and you can get in kind of a depressive, state of mind. Obviously watched a lot of television. I was very lucky. I'm from Houston. I live close to the medical center, so I had a lot of visitors. So, when people come to see you in the hospital, you get that hour or whatever it is of just not thinking about your diagnosis. And it's really great to have people. And, the food in the hospital isn't so great. And so it was nice. They were bringing me food up there. And Whataburger's awesome when you're going through it. I love milkshakes too.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like you had an incredibly supportive community, lots of love, surrounding you. Um, did you have anybody that you could really relate to who had been through anything like what you
The
were
people that were
going through?
visiting me, not so much.
Yeah.
It was uplifting to have them come to me and to get my mind off of my diagnosis for a few hours. But there wasn't anybody that came up there that had been through what I had
Yeah.
been through.
So I know that changed for you though after meeting a certain lady at the hospital. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, I refer to this lady as my little angel. And, crazy enough, I had been exposed to CanCare prior to this, played in the CanCare golf tournament out at Lakeside Country Club, and went to a breakfast for CanCare, but it just never dawned on me that I would need CanCare. And
Yeah.
I really didn't totally understand what CanCare was about.
Hmm.
But this little lady who I met years after that came in my room, and she had a brochure in her hand, and it was the CanCare brochure. And she said, "Would you like one of these?" And I couldn't grab it fast enough. And I read about CanCare, and the next morning I called, and it probably took a couple days, but I got a referral.
Okay. So tell me about that relationship. I know your relationship that you were matched with is like legend around CanCare because it's just such a beautiful story. So tell us about that. Tell us
Well,
about
it's the first referral I got. It just wasn't a fit.
wasn't the right fit.
He was an older gentleman. I believe he was retired, and here I was. I had a young family. I had a great job, a
Yeah.
great career, and he and I couldn't relate. He couldn't relate to me. So I called CanCare back and I told them what I just told you, and they gave me another referral. And man, was I blessed! I got the all-star guy from CanCare. His name is Leonard Donaldson, and man, he is, he is like, to me, he's the face of CanCare, and we developed this friendship over the phone. And the next thing you know, he was visiting me in the hospital, and the relationship just grew and grew from there. And when I got out of the hospital, he and we've stayed very close. I really consider him part of my family. He was at my son's bar mitzvah. We've gone out and did some speaking together. Just a great guy, and man, was I blessed.
So what was it about that relationship? Maybe there was a memory or a moment or some particular words that he shared. What
Well,
was it
as
that?
you start to say that, I kind of get goosebumps or chills
Uh,
because Leonard didn't have my exact kind of cancer,
uh-huh.
but our symptoms were very much alike.
Yeah.
And, the fact that we both, had careers and families and all that. So he understood what I was going through mentally and a little bit physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all those things. And the doctors just don't have that. So Leonard brought a whole new dimension into my recovery that I wasn't getting out of the doctors, nurses in the hospital.
Mm. That's amazing. That's amazing. So, at some point, post treatment, you made a decision to become a Leonard and to join the CanCare family as a volunteer. So, tell us a little bit about that decision, kind of what made you want to serve in that
Well,
way.
first of all, I hope I'm half as good as Leonard. But when I was going through cancer, I decided when I got through it, I wanted to do something with this. And I didn't know it was going to be CanCare at the time, but as I got to know Leonard and I saw what his relationship with me was doing for me and even for him, this is what I wanted to do when I got well and was qualified to go through the training, which was a blast. And I got to meet that lady that came to my room that day. I was at a CanCare luncheon, and I saw her standing off to the side. She looked sort of familiar, and I went over there and introduced myself. She's a huge volunteer at Methodist Hospital, Houston Methodist Hospital. But I just couldn't have all this experience and not give it away, give it to somebody else. That's what I needed to do, give it to somebody else. And CanCare was the way to do it.
That's awesome. So I know you volunteer in two different ways. You have a one-on-one volunteer set of clients, which is really what Leonard was for you, and you also volunteer in the hospital. So let's start with the clients. As you've visited with clients and had many from all over the country, really, in the time that you have been a volunteer, is there a particular client or a particular story that just really stands out to you and that touches you?
It's just all the clients that I had looked at this as it was a bump in the road. They felt like, or they knew they were going to get through it, which is really very important to have a positive mental attitude. Mm-hmm. And what we do by coming into the hospitals or meeting them one-on-one, they just want to see somebody that came out on the other side, is what they say. And I know in visiting the hospitals, they would always thank me, and I think they thanked all the volunteers. It wasn't that I was so unique. And I used to say, well, it's kind of a selfish thing that we do because I feel better than I did when I walked in here. If our words can give them a little bit of hope, that's what CanCare is all about. And there's nothing I've ever done that's as gratifying as what I do with CanCare. I'm not working in the hospitals at the moment, just taking some time off. But when you work in the hospital, they give you these blue lab jackets with all your credentials on the pocket and so forth. And I worked in the clothing business the majority of my life, so I had access to nice clothes. But when I put this blue lab jacket on, I felt like Superman. I walked around the hospital with my chest out, and I felt so empowered when I put that blue jacket on. And the other thing that was unique about the relationship in the hospitals with the doctors and the nurses, when I first went in there, I was a little awkward. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I'd get in the way, but I found the opposite of that. The doctors and the nurses and all the staff, they really support the volunteers at the hospital. They know that we play a very important role in the recovery of the patients.
Absolutely. I mean, they really consider us part of the cancer care team, for sure. That's really powerful. So tell us about some of the lessons that cancer has taught you, maybe first, and then, lessons about helping others through CanCare.
Well, a lot of us take life for granted. And then when you go through something like that, you realize how important it is to have your health. I also got closer to my religion and my synagogue. I didn't consider myself a spiritual person until I went through what I went through. And I know I've gotten close to my higher power and my synagogue and the fellowship that existed in my synagogue. Giving back in that kind of a way, that you've got to have the experience. You have to go through the experience in order to give this thing back. And I just think it's kind of our obligation to do something like that, even though it's fulfilling and all these other things. I just think we're obligated to do these things, and it's you just feel wonderful doing it. I don't consider it work. I've met some great people. I just got a referral from this guy's in Michigan, and we started talking. His leukemia came back, which is kind of rare, and he flew to Houston to go see one of the hospitals here, and we've been together a couple times now. We have a lot in common. We're both of the Jewish faith. on and on, some other things. And, this guy's like a buddy to me. I'm helping him find a place to stay for probably 6 months to a year while he goes through his cancer treatment. And God, I feel like he's family too. So there's so many benefits with the relationships you make, being a volunteer for CanCare.
Well, you've become for him what Leonard was for you. I mean, you're just paying it forward. What a blessing that is.
Exactly. As I said, I hope I'm half as good as Leonard. Leonard's amazing.
He taught you well. He taught you well.
He's just got this manner about him that just lights up the room.
He's a special man. So you think back to your CanCare volunteer training. We asked this question of all of our volunteer classes about the gift that cancer gave them. And most people at first, they're like, what are you talking about? The gift that cancer gave me. But as they process it, something, comes out that has been a blessing for them through their cancer journey. So what was your gift from cancer?
Probably the relationship that I formed with my kids. It was really something. My son would sneak into my room. He was young then, and he was lower than the desk there where the nurses were, and he was underage. And he would come to the room, and it was just great seeing him. My daughter was a little on the squeamish side, and she couldn't come in. She wouldn't come into the room. But when I went home, my son was even changing my infusions, and my daughter even says that it helped her become more independent, because I was kind of out of the picture for a couple of years, and she was having to, do a lot of things on her own. Both of them went through a bar and bat mitzvah while I was ill, and I was able to go to both of them, but I wasn't a very active participant. The other thing, as I said before, getting closer to my religion and my synagogue, and seeing how important that fellowship is. I've spoken a couple times about my cancer at the synagogue, and I really enjoy Friday night services. I've been a member of that synagogue since I was a kid, and I'm third generation. My kids are fourth generation, and it just feels so warm and good, to be there on Friday nights. It's cancer night next month, and I know somebody from CanCare is going to come and speak about what CanCare does. So, bringing it into my synagogue's been a great thing.
So what would you want to share with our listeners? Maybe there's someone out there listening today who's just been diagnosed with cancer. What message, based on your cancer experience, maybe your volunteer experience with CanCare, would you want them to hear today?
Well, being diagnosed with cancer is not a death sentence necessarily. And it's, as these patients told me when I was going to their rooms, this is just a little bump in the road, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. It's not going to be cured overnight. There's no question. It's going to take some time, and your life kind of goes on hold. CanCare is not for everybody. A lot of people don't want to open up. They don't want to be vulnerable, and I think you have to be a little bit on the vulnerable side to use CanCare. So, as I said, it's not for everybody, but I pick up that phone just as soon as possible. I mean, I wasn't in that hospital for about a week until I kind of got Leonard and I set up, or CanCare got Leonard and I set up. So I wouldn't waste any time. And then if you find out it's not for you, it's not for you. I mean, Leonard and I's journey went for a long time, but some people get what they need out of CanCare in a shorter period of time. That's and right. It doesn't have to be a lifelong obligation. I just was blessed with a good volunteer, and we've stayed in touch all our lives.
Absolutely. So what about on the survivor side, or those survivors that are listening to us here today? What would you say to them about the possibility of volunteering with CanCare? What would your message be about?
Do it. Most rewarding thing you will ever do. The people at CanCare are first class. They do some very fun events and fundraising. It's just a great group of people to associate with. I have made so many friends being a CanCare volunteer, and what you get in return is just, it's invaluable. You can't put a price on that. And what you're doing for other people, it works the same way. It's the best. I've been involved in a lot of different organizations and charities, and it's not even close. This is the one that gives me the most satisfaction.
Amen. Well, I understand there's a big event coming up on your calendar on October 21st. What in the heck are you doing?
It's the CanCare golf tournament, and last year Johnny Caraba was chairman, and he just got me motivated to do this thing this year. He took that golf tournament to another level, and he raised the bar, and I intend to get to that bar and hopefully pass it. But what a great way to raise money for a great charity is through a golf tournament. Again, a lot of fellowship, a lot of competition. Last 2 years, we've had great days. We have it out at Memorial Park where they play the Houston Open, so you're playing on the same course where the professionals played, and man, it's just a great day. And if there's anybody interested in playing, you need to get your money in quick because we always sell out.
We sell out, that's right. Well, you've heard the challenge right here, Johnny. Michael's going to overtake your record. I love it.
And thanks
Michael,
again to the golf doctor, Charlie Epps. He's going to get involved again, and he was such a big asset to us last year.
Oh, he's amazing. He's amazing. We love him. He'll be out there again this year as well.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Michael, just want to thank you so much for sharing your heart and your story. I know that there are so many out there listening today who will be touched by your words, and we just want to thank you for all your service that you've given to CanCare over so many years. And I look forward to being out there on the golf course with you on October 21st.
Looking forward to seeing you out there, and thank you for including me.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you all listening will join us for our next episode of Hope in the Face of Cancer. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hope in the Face of Cancer, a survivor by your side. If you or someone you know is facing cancer or is supporting a loved one through their journey, we invite you to share this podcast. Thank you for your support in our efforts in the cancer community. No one should face cancer alone.